Hi, and welcome to ESL RPG. Today on Stories, we're going back. No, not really, but we are talking about backstories. Whoa, teachers and students, don't go anywhere. Even if you have no interest in using games for language practice, stick around. There's still stuff worth learning. Meanwhile, if you're looking for a detailed guide on how to make a character backstory, well, that's something else I'm working on. Today, our focus is some examples, whether or not you truly need one, how much you need, and why you should make one. Let's start with the shortest backstory first. Barfy the Goblin Barbarian. Barfy's backstory is as follows. He was a highwayman, working with the Cragmaw clan and taking care of the wolves. He really liked wolves. Maybe a little too much. To the point that he kind of understands wolves better even than other goblins. Anyway, when he was captured by some random people slaughtering most of the people in Cragmaw Cave and found a fellow goblin among them, he acknowledged the shift in power, but mostly only respects Klug. He chafes under most rules, though, and longs to make his fellow prisoners free. Bare minimum you need? That's it. That is everything right there. If you are making a character who interacts with the party and is kind of in the background, that works. Sure, it's short, but it is carefully crafted to focus on a few key points. It shows where he's from, his motivations, his philosophical leanings, how he knows the party, and how he thinks of the party. Additionally, it explains his background, skill set, and class perfectly. For those keeping score, background is a criminal. Class is a barbarian totem warrior with the totem of the wolf. As for his personality and motivations, well, he doesn't care about risks, has a hair-trigger temper, wants to break chains and free people, can't really lie, and his bond is that one about losing someone because of a mistake he vows never to repeat. Yes, that someone was his favorite wolf. Additionally, if you know something about wolves and their social orders, you know that the hierarchy within a wolf pack is built on respect for individuals who promote the good of the pack, and that leadership is something not earned by displays of power or birthright, but from setting a good example for others. Let's get a little longer with an NPC from the Heroes of New Sidonia campaign. Just choosing at random. Let's say Irene Smith. Okay, it isn't completely at random, and while there are backstories for a number of NPCs, including main villains, mentors, and Gary, I'm still reconstructing much of the material after the great computer crash and data loss of 2019. It just so happens I have her backstory pre-typed, and I'm a little lazy. Irene Granny Smith is a major philanthropist, married to the late Pat Smith. Her and her husband are one of the few true rags to riches stories in New Sidonia, held up by the Kratoks to give an illusion of hope to the powerless masses, motivating them to work hard. She is an important symbol for the government, and as such, highly protected and more valuable currently alive, as long as she is not too troublesome. She is also strongly motivated to give back to the community to try and make it better, brighter. She manages the Pat Smith Scholarship, paying for doctors and lawyers to train in exchange for a certain length of time working at a free hospital or law firm. The area of a Sifi orphanage and some housing projects, soup kitchens, halfway houses, and work help programs. The Kratoks allows these to continue in exchange for some very specific stipulations, including final say in who her estates and money pass on to. She has some children and grandchildren in business around town, but the Kratoks doesn't want someone with too much power or influence. De facto house arrest, excluding specific scheduled events, housing or protecting certain dangerous objects, sabotage devices planted at various of her projects to force compliance, and above all, no political involvement by her or her family. Okay, so you see a lot of the other stuff we talked about before, but you also see some key things that point to another big reason to write your backstory, your character's place in the world. Well, why would that be important? A number of reasons. The top of the list would be plot hooks. Using information about where your character sits now, where they came from, who they know, what kind of people they might know, and so on, Your DM can craft things to pull you along and guide you in a character-centered story. That said, this is an NPC, so it kind of works the other way, informing players of ways they could interact with her to move the story one way or the other. But her place in the world also tells how the rest of the world sees her. In this case, respected by the underclasses, but seen as a chaotic element to be controlled by those in power. Last point, let's look at a character I have played. No, not Father Jack. No, we kind of already did Airy. This time, it's Bob! Well, not my whole backstory this time. I mean, I'm a grandpa. My backstory would be really long if I included everything. Okay, key points. I grew up with my parents and grandpappy in a small village on a farm. I was adopted. It was kind of obvious, really, considering I was 8 feet tall, covered in red striped things, and not an elf. Not really sure where I came from, but any Goliath I've met, they look at me and they really don't like me. Hey, I don't know why. Don't ask me. Moving on. Anyway, sometime when I was young, there was a big group of wolves moving towards our village. Might have been some dire wolves leading them. That's not important. But what is I was out with my grandpappy at the time, and we saw them coming, and he was this big hero from the war, so he told me to warn the village while he held them off. I did, and he did. Well, he tried. There was a lot of wolves, and it had been a long time since he was in the war, and I tried to help, but, well, let's just say I lost my grandpappy that day, and that was my fault, but I became a hero to my village, and that kind of wasn't. Ever since then, me and my Sue have tried to do our best to live up to that reputation and take it in any kid who needed it as they came. It kind of worked, but you know how it goes. Kids grow up and move off, trying to make a better life out in the city or adventuring or whatnot. Oh, and you ain't ever gonna find my village if you're looking for it. Not since this very not nice man with a very aggressive army full of, let's just call them bad folk. Well, they razed it to the ground and killed or captured everyone I knew who was there, including Sue. Needless to say, I'm not a happy man, and I'm very motivated to do some not nice things. Okay, motivations, place in the world, plot hooks, that's all there, but we've talked about that, so why is Bob here? Personal philosophy and personality is more than a simple list of rules people try to follow. It is motivated by a character's perception of their own history, what events they think are most important, what they are most proud of, what they are most ashamed of. Those push and pull a character to act one way or another. Additionally, I've included some plot hooks that are secret to the character that he himself doesn't know. Alright, that's 3 stories that show why you should make a backstory. But what about the other 2 questions? Do you really need one? Well, no, not really. At least not all the way from the beginning. I didn't start writing Barfy's backstory until the party needed him to pick locks. Heck, I only first filled in some small details about him when the party first wanted to talk to him after capturing him. If we're talking background characters, their backstories only come into play when you first play or interact with them. For most NPCs a player encounters, even 2 sentences is enough. But if you have at least those 2 sentences, that cements that character. Consciously considering a character's history, it becomes much easier to become that character, to act as they would. So no, you don't absolutely need it, but you should have it. As far as how much, that is up to you and how important that character is. And even if you start with a short backstory, there's no reason you can't add to it in the future as you ask yourself, why would my character act this way? Or choose this? I was serious when I said Bob's story here was a summary. The real thing is many pages long and deeply entwined in the lore of the world. Oh, teachers and students, are you still here? Well, thank you for sticking around. What's that? Everything about why it's important for games is clear, but not why it's important for people not playing those games? Well, let's go back to the classroom and how you practice language. Even if you don't play games to practice language, playing a character is still sometimes a part of practice. And sometimes those characters are just flat, uninteresting. Well, this is how you make them interesting, whether as a teacher writing this practice or a student doing it. In fact, sometimes the best way a teacher can design language practice or a student can practice themselves is to set the character and their motivations and personality and then to speak as them without a script. The key to that comes down to who a character is, and a lot of that, well, it's just history. Thank you for watching until the end. If you had fun, maybe check out our podcast at ESL RPG. And if you like what we do, consider supporting us on Patreon at ESL RPG. Finally, for our patron, King Michael, ruler of the Land of Awesome and teller of stories from way back. Thank you for your support.